Hi, I'm Kitty Feldy of 89.3 KPCC, and this is the Book Club of the Year for Young Adults. It's a conversation we have every month about young adult literature with some of the toughest critics around, the young readers themselves. And our trio of critics today are all from St. Cyprian's in Long Beach, California. Alexa Vaughn, Josh Anatalio, and Josh Perez. Thanks so much for being with us. Good. Well, let's start talking about the book of the month. It is A Single Shard by Linda Sue Park. And who wants to give us the plot rundown? Josh?
The plot is an orphan named Tree Ear is living with a man named Crane Man, and he accidentally breaks one of Min's vases, and Tree Ear wants to work for him to pay it off. And when Tree Ear works off his debt, then he decides to keep working for Min to try, because he wants to learn to make a pot.
Alexa, why does Tree Ear have that odd name?
He has that name because he's an orphan and he had no family, and a man named Crane Man raises him underneath a bridge. So Crane Man starts calling him Tree Ear because he is like an ear on a tree. It was a mushroom type plant growing on it, and they're not really noticed by anything, but they can hear everyone. And Tree Ear is always like listening to people and wandering around the streets.
Tell us about the title, Middle Josh.
A Single Shard is about, well, the title means that when Tree Ear goes to bring Min's vases to a man named Missionary Kim, because Min wants a commission. So when he brings the vases, he runs into some robbers that try to rob him for all that he has. But at the when they're almost done robbing him, they take the vases and throw him off a cliff. Then Tree Ear goes down the cliff, and he decides to bring a piece of a broken pot, a shard, to the missionary, and that's why it's called A Single Shard.
Okay, we should explain. Actually, he's an emissary, not a missionary, but he's the emissary to the emperor of Korea. This takes place in Korea in a very ancient time. It's an era of history I don't know anything about. Did you guys know anything about it before you started reading this book? Josh?
No, not really.
You're nodding, Alexa. You know a little about Korean history?
I knew a little bit about Korea. I knew there was North and South, and the capitals have changed over time. Mm-hmm. Before they had different cities, and they changed them over the time.
And you guys did a little bit of research, yeah?
Yeah.
Josh, what'd you learn that you didn't know before?
That the Yellow Sea bordered Korea, or South Korea and North Korea.
And what did you learn, Josh? What do you remember from all that research?
I learned that Korea also borders the Sea of Japan.
Okay. Of course, all of that sort of geography, does that mean anything to you? Can you kind of picture where that is, or is this just sort of stuff you memorized and it'll probably get flushed away in about a month?
That's just stuff I memorized.
Do you? Okay. Has anybody ever been to the East to travel?
No,
me neither. I mean, I've been to Japan, but not to Korea. Yeah. So this creates a very different world than we're used to. Describe how it's very different from the things we're used to, Alexa.
Well, one way it's different than here is that it is a lot smaller than the United States, but also there are many people who are potters in that time, and we don't really have potter makers here. It can be done by machine, and you can buy the things you need to make the pot. And those people, they had to get it themselves and then put it inside a kiln, and they had to burn it. And
so you learned a little bit about pottery making then?
Yes.
Have you ever tried to make pots yourself?
I tried once. I'm not very good at it.
I'm not very good at it either. Well, tell me a little bit about this world of making pots, Josh. It's a real organized society. I mean, everybody in the town made pots.
Yes, but before, there wasn't that many pot makers. So the emperor, he established a law that said that potters had to pass down their makings to their sons. Mm-hmm. And so, like the potters, if a new person wanted to teach a pot, they couldn't because it could only be passed down by father to son.
Which is kind of a problem for our lead character, Treat-Ear, in this book, because he's an orphan. Let's talk about that idea, though, about you can only really be what your father is. What would you think about that, Josh? Do you want to? Let's stay with this, Josh. Would you want to be what your dad is?
Well, I kind of want to be myself, like try something new.
What would you think if it was the law of the land that you had to grow up to do exactly what your dad did?
I'd move to another place.
What about Josh, number 2?
I kind of want to be what my dad is.
Do you? What's your dad do?
He's a milkman.
Really? Gosh, I don't think there even still were milkmen. That's great, because there aren't very many of them left. What about the job do you like?
I like the fact that that you get that you can get milk delivered to you, and
So you're providing a service to people. Yeah. Did your dad get to work with cows?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I like cows a lot. We'll go back to Josh 1. What do you want to do? Have you thought about that at all?
Not really.
Okay. Would you like to have the options open?
Yeah.
Alexa, what would you think about having to do what your mom or your dad does?
Well, my mom and dad, I don't think they'd be making pots that much, so they don't really like to make pots.
Okay, so
But,
you probably wouldn't
yeah.
have to be a potter.
No.
Okay.
But if they were potters and I'd have to be passed on that, then I'd just do it anyway, because, I mean, if it earns money for the family, I'd do it. But, like, if I didn't have to do that, I've always wanted to be a veterinarian because I
Oh.
love animals, so.
You good at math and science?
I'm okay at science. I'm pretty good at math.
Okay, that's good. That's good. This book also has a journey in it. After we learn about the pot making, et cetera, Treat-Ear goes on this journey. A lot of books have journeys in them. Can you think of any other books that this reminded you of? The journey part of this book reminded you of?
No, not really.
Not anything else. Did this remind you of anything at all, this book at all? I don't know any other books set in Korea even.
No.
There's one, but it's more of a wartime story that we may do coming up. But
Yeah.
this was sort of unusual. Did that make it interesting, the fact that it was a world that you had never read about before or heard about before?
Yes.
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 I mean, why? Why is that, do you think? Because a lot of times you think, oh, well, I just want to read about people who are like me, who live lives kind of like me. Why is just the opposite interesting?
Well, because it's really nice to figure out about how like other people lived in a different place, and especially at even a different time, because it shows what they did for everyday life.
Did you read in the back of the book when Linda Sue Park, there's an interview with her, and she talks about in this society at this time, usually there weren't orphans and homeless people. Did you read that part of the book? Josh too, I hate to do that to you, Josh Perez, what exactly did people in Korea at this time do with home? I mean, if you were homeless or if you lost your parents, what happened to you normally?
You would usually just have to live on the street or something.
Well, that's kind of what happens here oftentimes, but in the book, did you guys read this thing that they said that usually, oftentimes the monasteries, the monks would take in poor and homeless people. It's kind of a different society. So this was sort of an unusual situation that you had this character living where, under a bridge?
Yes.
Tell us about Crane Man, Josh.
He's a wise old man, and the reason they call him Crane Man is because his leg, when he was born, it was swollen and he couldn't use it, so he uses a crutch. And Crane Man, he's basically like a father to Treat-Ear. He gives him wisdom, feeds him, and gives him shelter under the bridge.
Food was a real problem for these people. How did they get food?
They would usually look in rubbish heaps or trash.
Is that something you could see yourself ever doing?
No.
How about you, Alexa?
Mm-mm.
No way, huh?
I don't like digging in the trash.
How about you, Josh Perez?
No.
Can you ever imagine actually being hungry enough to want to do that, or to need to do that? Could you imagine yourself as you were reading the book being that hungry?
Yeah.
Yes.
So what does the writer do to make you be able to make that leap from what you would do yourself to be able to imagine what the character's doing? What does a writer do to make that happen in a book, do you think?
I think they explain how he does it and like how it's so different from how we do it.
So they come up with little details that help out. Can you remember anything in particular that just sort of went, oh, I get it now?
No, not really.
Okay. Alexa?
Well, they were really like, she was really like into this book. It got me into it because she's a great writer. She wrote a great book, and
Well,
I
why?
never
What makes it
really-
a great book and what makes her a great writer?
Well, it was just she knows how to write her sentences in a way that can make you understand it. Her words click together, and you
So it's
just know.
clear.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, also it was just an interesting story because of the plots and things that happened. Because this boy named Trier, he's an orphan and he's living under a bridge, and he almost starves. But since he works for Min, he actually gets a meal for doing his work also. And his best friend is Crane Man because Crane Man really takes care of him, and he shares his food with Crane Man because without Crane Man he wouldn't be living under the bridge anyway, so he wouldn't have a home.
Josh Perez, what makes this book, did you like this book? I didn't even ask that.
Yes, I liked it.
Not a lot, but okay. Yeah, okay. What would have made it a great book in your opinion?
If there was even more adventure.
It was a little slow, huh? Yeah. More, you thought more could happen or should happen in it. Yeah, what'd you think, Josh?
Yeah, same as Josh Perez. I liked it some parts, but I didn't like other parts.
What did you like, what didn't you like?
I liked more parts where there was action and adventure, and I didn't like the parts where there was sadness.
Oh, so you don't like a sad story necessarily. Did you like the part with the robbers in it?
Yeah, it was kind of action because he was praying that they wouldn't steal the vases, and it showed how loyal he was to Min.
They also have this recurring animal creature that keeps coming back in, of the fox. Describe why the fox is there. What does the fox mean? Alexa?
The fox is considered bad luck to them, to the Koreans, because a legend says that some people have been lured by the fox's bewitched eyes, and they lure them into their cave or their lair, and they feed them to their babies, and they think that they're just really bad luck, almost like people think like vampire bats are bad luck. They think them like that.
So the foxes appear how, Josh?
They usually come at night, and that's what makes it like they're dark animals.
And in the book, how did Linda Sue Park use the foxes?
She used it for Crane Man and Tree Ear.
And what happened? How did she have the foxes suddenly appear?
By surprise.
Yeah. Josh, exactly. Do you remember how they sort of showed up?
They just kind of rustled the bushes a little, and then they just kind of appeared.
But what do you think she used the fox? We know that the fox is a symbol of a scary thing. In other words, in the eyes. So we understand that. So why do you think it was necessary? As a technique, as a writer, why do you think she, first of all, told us about the fox and then had a fox show up? What was the purpose in the storytelling, do you think?
Because so we know that the fox, why it's bad luck, because if she didn't tell us that the fox was a bad luck, then we probably would have been surprised, like why a fox was so dangerous to them.
But she puts that in there, so she tells us the fox is dangerous, and then she has the fox appear, so you as a reader, when you see that fox appear and you know that it's bad luck, what do you know is going to happen next?
It seems like Trier's going to get hurt.
So it was a clue to the reader. She's using it as a technique for the reader. It's called foreshadowing. It's like, giving the reader a clue of what's going to happen next. Can you think how writers do that in other stories, where they give the reader a clue before something happens? Can you think of another book?
Well, in a series of unfortunate events.
Yes.
Lemony Snicket usually
Yes.
just tells you what's going to happen next.
So he comes right out and tells you. He's very funny in the way he does that too. Yeah. What about another example? Any other one there you can see where maybe the writer wasn't quite as obvious, Alexa?
Well, like for, I'm a big fan of Harry Potter. I read all the books, and like when Harry has his bad dreams, that when he has his visions, he knows that something bad's going to happen, and it tells the reader because he, J.K. Rowling actually explains his dreams, and they actually really happen. So they show that it happened or is going to happen.
Dreams are very common in books, adult books and young adult books. They often use dreams to try to use foreshadowing and help the reader. Is it important, do you think, though, to help the reader that way, or is that kind of like blowing the story because you've sort of already, given away what's going to happen? What do you think, Josh?
I think that it's a good way to write, a good writing technique, because if it just, because usually you might need a hint, like what's going to happen, because or it tells you that how the story's going to be bad.
But why do you think as a reader you need that hint?
So when you come to it, you're not surprised.
So it kind of cushions the fall, sort of speak, as they describe. Like if you're going to fall off a building, they put down a blanket so you won't smush yourself, or a cushion. So that's kind of what the writer's doing, is cushioning you so you won't have a heart attack and stop reading?
Yeah.
I guess. One of the other things that Linda Sue Park does in this book is she creates little details. They always call them telling details, the thing that really kind of sets it apart so that we know where we are in Korea in the whatever century this is. Can you think of any of the details that she writes about particularly that stick in your mind? Alexa?
Well, in the beginning, she sort of says like what the setting is. She almost says that like it's in Korea, about the 12th century. And you can almost tell because of just the way she writes, because people are making pottery at that time. And it also says it's going to be in North Korea.
But that's kind of cheating. It's like saying, okay, here's a story about Korea and it takes place in this century. So what does she do in the storytelling when she's in the middle of telling you what happens to give you, the reader, the sense that you're really there? Are there little things, because we talked about the difference between today and then. The way you get to people to then is to give them little pieces of then that they can remember and take with them when they're reading. Can you remember any of those little pieces?
Yes, another part was that they always talked about Songdo, which was the capital, and they talk about the emissaries and the emperor of Korea.
Of course, we don't have emperors in America, so that's different.
Yes, that's different, and it gives you a clue because most people call their emperors in like the area there in Korea, China, Japan. It sort of gives you the idea that they're in that area.
Anything come to your mind, Josh, that you can remember that were little details in the storytelling?
That like she featured no technology, so that kind of told you.
Okay, there you go. Nobody had a cell phone. Nobody was, picking up email or anything. So that no electricity, as a matter of fact. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's good. What else?
They had to make their shoes.
Yeah.
They would say that was made of straw, and
Something
then that
we
they had
don't
to
do.
weave them. Yeah.
That's good. And she was very detailed about how they made them too, because you could kind of see how he was making those shoes, sort of. How about you, Josh Perez?
It's kind of because there's no really advanced tools.
Nobody's bringing out the power saw or electric nail driver or anything. He's whittling a cane. And nobody's going to the grocery store either. That's the other thing. There's no real stores there going on. So you guys didn't think there was any other book that this reminded you of? You can't think of anything else that this reminded you of in any way, shape, or form?
Not really. It's pretty like a unique book. I've never really read anything about Korea.
But Josh, you have a thought?
A little about orphans, because we've read other books in class about orphans.
Why do you think that writers often write about orphans in kids' books, more so than they do in adult books? And actually, adult books, a lot of people really are orphans because their parents, more people's parents die when you get older than when you're younger. Why do you think people pick orphans oftentimes as a topic?
Because usually people who read those books aren't an orphan, and then they know how hard it is and how lucky they are that they're not an orphan.
So you really think this is sort of a plot to get everybody to appreciate their parents?
Sure.
Kind of, huh? So if, okay, so there are some other orphan books. As a matter of fact, the series of Unfortunate Events books are, of course, about some orphans as well. And about 1 million old books are about orphans. What do you like to read? We heard Harry Potter. We heard Series of Unfortunate Events. Josh, what do you like to read?
I don't really like series books.
Yeah.
Because they cut off at the end, and it's like they're saying you have to get the next book to finish the ending.
It's kind of, yeah, kind of a plot, huh, to get you to keep buying more books.
Mm-hmm.
What do you like to read? What's your favorite book of all times?
I like a book by Beverly Cleary,
Which one?
Henry Huggins.
Oh, yes. Well, there's more than one Henry Huggins book, though, isn't there?
Yeah.
So that's kind of a series.
Yeah, well,
Why do you like Henry Huggins? I mean, tell me why. Tell me the difference between Henry Huggins and Harry Potter series.
I like Henry Huggins because it's not a lot of fantasy, and you can like understand how his life is, because it's sort of in our time period.
Do you like current novels that are set in present day rather than old-fashioned ones? Or historical
I like
ones?
in the middle, kind of, like around maybe about 1990s.
Okay. All right. So it doesn't have to be 2005, but something at least in your lifetime. Well, that's not your lifetime, is it? It's before you were born, but not too long ago.
Yeah.
Okay. How about you, Josh? Perez?
Another one of my favorite books is The Voyages of Dr. Dolittle.
Why? Why do you like Dr. Dolittle so much?
Well, it just at first I thought it would be like kind of boring, but as I read on, it was really interesting.
But what was it about that book that made it interesting?
Well, there were a lot of animals, and I also like animals.
So that was enough of a hook. And the fact that they talked helps too. Was it funny, and did you like the character of Dr. Dolittle?
Yes.
Okay, so the writing was pretty good too? All right, and besides Harry Potter, what else do you like to read, Alexa?
I love all sorts of fantasy. I'm all about the fantasy, and I like any kind, I don't care what, like when it takes place, just as long as it has at least maybe a little bit of fantasy in it. Or if it doesn't matter, but I like fantasy the most. It's my favorite.
Well, and because there's so many different kind of categories in that, do you like science fiction or not really?
No, not really. I just like regular, just like Harry Potter type fantasy.
Chronicles of Narnia?
Yes, I've only read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe of that, but I really liked it. And also I've read a couple other books that take place in like maybe different places, but this is the only Korean book I've read.
Would you be interested in reading other Korean books?
Yes.
Yeah? What about you, Josh?
Yeah, but probably about more present time.
Me too. I'd very much like to read about present time. I wish I could remember the name of the book that's set in, I think it's set at the end of the Second World War. I'll have to find it. But I wonder if there's any that are being translated now. You'd think we have such a very large Korean American population here in Los Angeles especially, that there'd be a lot of books out there, but I'm gonna have to do some looking around. And if anybody knows of any, send us your suggestions to Book Club of the Air. Just spell it out at cs.com, or actually AOL.com. So Book Club of the Year at AOL.com if you have suggestions for current day Korean books, because we really would like some more suggestions on that. And by the way, if you would like to be on the Book Club of the Year, just send us an email to bookcluboftheyear at AOL.com and we will be giving you a call. So Josh, getting back to this idea about favorite books, anything else besides the series of unfortunate, we said Dr. Dolittle, anything else on your list?
Yes. Pendragon.
Pendragon, well I would think that'd be something you'd like, right?
I haven't read those actually, but I will probably sometime.
How about, is it Aragon? What's the big dragon book that's out right now? What's that one called? I'm trying to remember. I think it's Aragon. I can't remember. Nobody's read that one. That's about that thick.
Yeah, I think it is.
We've seen it in the library.
Yeah, okay, because if you like fantasy, probably you'd like that. How about Madeline L'Engle? Are you a Madeline L'Engle fan?
I've never read.
Wrinkle in Time? Oh, you must read it.
I have seen the movie though.
Oh, okay. It's better than the movie. The movie's pretty good, but yeah. Well, that's good. Any other recommendations for our, yes, Josh?
The Giver.
Lois Lowry. That's a great book. That was one of our very first book club books. And as a matter of fact, if anybody's interested in a good book list, if they send us an email to bookcluboftheyear@aol.com, we will send you our book lists. Since, gosh, I think we've been doing this for many, many years, probably before you guys started reading. Not that long, but it seems like that long. So thank you very much for coming on the show today. You guys were terrific. So we want to thank our trio of readers, Alexa Vaughn and Josh Anatalio and Josh Perez. They're all 6th graders at St. Cyprian in Long Beach. And we also want to thank Ms. McDonald for bringing all of the students in. And look who's here. Caitlin's here with us, and Josh, you're coming over too. Hey, have a seat here. So tell me what you guys are reading now. What are you reading, Caitlin?
I like a lot of books. I just